What time does your current time show? What day? What is an average human life? These are questions developed in accordance with the search of measurement well, or meaning of mankind, associated with a concept of care time. Time is a system defined well by a continuous start and finish. However, what we call as a full day is a full cycle of the Earth, while the world expresses a full return. Around its own axis, a year is a full revolution of the Earth around the Sun. These concepts are relative ideas that are not the beginning and end. Then, why our perception of time is constantly shaped as a line with starting and ending point in a flow. Why we are constantly using, well, the most effective and efficient, time. This week, we will discover how the human perception makes us the deep and mysterious concept. But before proceeding to your location, do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like our video and jump like. Humanity has started to understand cycles since the first step in this world and improve their survival skills. When the morning will start and when the future of the evening, naturally, it was a need to determine the necessary cycles for the best time of the precious harvest. The first methods were revealed in Sumer civilization around 5000 BC and adopted by Egyptian civilization. Initially, the birth of the sun is divided into 3 parts in order to mark different stages of the sun and the different stages of the day for religious rituals. With the disappearance of the sun, the most pronounced state of the month is determined in the scene. The movements of the moon are followed easier than the sun stages due to the relationship with the movement of our planet and played an important role in organizing the perception of our ancestors. As a result, a lunar calendar has been created. For the first time, by farmers in Sumer civilization, it was used to determine the most efficient harvest times in religious rituals thanks to the sensitivity of cycles. The concept of one day is defined as a period of 29 or 30 days at first. As time progresses, and our civilization developed complex systems and observation ability, we see that civilizations such as Egypt have adopted the solar calendar as an alternative to the moon calendar. Egypt civilization used the solar calendar as a basic time editing tool for agriculture in a period where life is completely dependent on the Nile River. Also, by calculating the time needed to complete a full patrol around the sun, the changing angles of the sunlight and the sunsets of the day are taken into account. In this big cycle of the month, 12 times a year was divided into 12 months. Then Babel civilization, who is interested intensively in astronomy, the planets that are considered sacred in the sky, these are the Sun, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, began to follow their movements meticulously. Every day, a sacred planet and heavenly gods were associated and used in this way. However, people are asked to do smaller measurements to determine how long the day lasts. In Egypt, new methods have been used in order to measure the night time and improve a scheme that we can call clock, divided into 12 equal parts per day. The choice of 12 numbers is interesting because in fact, it is based on the 12 major god and 12 constellations in the sky. Also, it should be taken into account that the sextant system developed by Babylon is perfectly fit. Of course, Babylonians did not stand for the deepening of this system. They have been making hours more detailed by dividing 60 minutes to 60 seconds. As a result, today we still use 12 and 60 number systems have an indispensable place in our lives. However, when these ancient civilizations reevaluate the concept of time, they have seen that the time is not linear in a cyclic structure. When I mentioned before, measurement systems are developed tools to understand these cycles in the beliefs and time understanding of all these civilizations. The natural flow of time is fundamental philosophy, and people have maintained their lives according to this principle. The beliefs of the cycle are shaped, including beliefs related to death. Naradesa has never seen ancient civilization as a line of time and believed that life cycles begin to root in culture and religions. Now, some people, and you may think like this, what does the time change whether it is cyclic? However, this is a concept that gives psychologically significant results. Why? Because some elements have created a race to make you a kind of slave using this concept. Now it's time to say deeper and interesting aspects of the concept. As I mentioned earlier, I cannot see a philosophical and psychological distinction between cyclic time and linear time because your brain is shaped for about 150 years. But when you look at society today, you should notice that the destructive effects have reached irresistible levels. You can see it even when you look at the mirror, because they brought you consciously to this situation. The discovery of steam energy in the UK in Hiscu century created the beginning of transferring the largest transformation in human civilization into mechanical instruments. It is not true to say that industrial revolution is experiencing the end of mankind. If we are able to reach 80 years and have opportunities with our technology, this system can be evaluated as a result of the feeding capacity of 8 billion people. However, there is also a negative aspect. This can be called wild capitalism and imperialism basically. With the establishment of first factories, people began to build, work and life cycles in accordance with the basic cycles of nature. They met a new concept, working hours. This period was limited to a certain time in the day, but Henry Ford's assembly line method had started with standardization, and time, it became a value for bosses. When the pre-production model is in the form of produce a table, you can produce several tables on time. Then, with the standardization of the assembly line, a print appeared like a table in 1 minute. This printing is mandatory for people to produce more in shorter time zones and become a race. If you can produce 5 tables in 1 hour, you protect your business, otherwise your place is taken. With time, this printing will be reduced to several minutes, then the seconds, and it would turn to thousands of pieces. People who have experienced throughout the centuries have experienced in harmony with the elements of nature balancer. In a 24/7 capitalist system, even working hours, when their time is converted to products and profitable, human labor has been replaced by machines. The greedy capitalist giants have been slavery in seconds by bringing people into machines. This modern robot slavery model has caused us to perceive our lives as a production line. We grow and develop over time, then we end at the end of the line and the story ends here. Different from a machine that comes from the factory, you are precious as human. If this isn't even enough, you're spending only 2 weeks and spend 15 days a year's holiday, and you get a low fee for this valuable time. Due to the perception of time, such as this production line, I did not do anything this time, I should do something. You are experiencing anxiety. Yet these giants spend their fortunes of $1 billion. Here is the evolution of a society: mechanicalized watches, longer days, and most importantly, works for financial rewards. Perhaps an individual cannot earn 100 billion, but the foundations of development and civilization across the society are laid. After all, linear time understanding applied by industrial giants is applied without warning about dangers, and people cannot notice problems. Remember, because of what science and media are free, studies on these topics are available, but they are not allowed to share with you. Science works only on financial support of these colonial giants I mentioned. Instead of telling you that you are in harmony with nature, do you think, my brother? I give you some antidepressants that I personally produce. Science is our only hope for salvation of mankind, but free science can deliver us to this salvation. Otherwise, science and systems, which are largely under control today, seem to be fully prepared for our end. Finally, do you like object on a production line in their eyes? Not. Yes, the table may seem black, but thanks to the internet, it is not so difficult to find light. The number of people who share information freely and access to this information is increasing. In particular, the concept of technology with advances in quantum physics began to reshape our brains, combining with the philosophy of our ancestors. In 1908, the famous physicist Hermann Minkowski developed the mathematical basis of the model known as Einstein's teacher, the concept of space-time, and the block model of the universe. Minkowski defines space-time as a 4-dimensional structure, time 400 numbers, time 300. This structure includes both space and time size. According to him, now and future This is at the same time in four-dimensional space. Minkowski was not the first person recommending this model. Permid, who lived before the 5th century, spoke about a holistic reality, that the universe claimed to exist. In fact, we learned this information from famous science fiction writers. Watch the Pythagoras video I did on my channel. Is extremely important to understand the roots of Old Greek wisdom. Remember that Pythagoras has gained this ancient information from Egypt and India. In Hinduism, there is a concept called Maya, which can be translated as illusion. According to this understanding, it is always necessary to make a distinction between creation and reality, and this cover represents the illusion of Maya. In India, a feature of this illusion that makes our time 400 miles Tramind complex is defined as time as a element that prevents us from achieving reality. The Hindu philosophy specifies that it is a barrier that we need to overcome to understand the fact that it disappears in time. According to Hindu thought, it is believed that by getting rid of this illusion, everything continues in integrity. Samsara, which I mentioned earlier, expresses the endless cycle and reincarnation of time. You can only get this cycle from nirvana. When meditation, it is important that your mind only concentrate on the current moment and stay away from the past or future thoughts. Continuously, it reminds us that time is formed only from loops, and we live in reinterpreting the information of history. As one of the contemporary scientists such as static block Nikolai Kozev-Minkowski, this large block represents a plane, one of the basic building blocks of the universe. This theory as a proven assumption: if you were near car drift on a planet, they queries how the Earth will look for you. According to the timeline last year, perhaps in our world will be equivalent to 10 years. This is about expanding and slowing the time around the black hole. This phenomenon is beautifully depicted in the film Interstellar. You can watch it. Einstein's theory has completely wrapped up the perception of humanity's traditional time and now became surprising with quantum physics findings. In 1967, quantum physicists John Wheeler and Bryce David developed an equation. This quantum physics studies reveal an interesting possibility that time is not an external asset. Understanding this concept may seem complicated because the time according to this study is actually not available in quantum level. Everything occurs as a single moment that is experienced at the same time. If you need to express this in a simpler way, everything you do at this time affects both history and future, and all these results are explained to you at the moment. This process is only relive parts. Obviously, I was forced to express it. Just let me understand it exactly, and maybe I think I don't understand it exactly because our brain. It evolved with a time perception, and it was a bit difficult to explain it to you. I hope I have at least managed to make a little explanation, because the most tropy law according to this approach is not valid at quantum level. Entropy is not available in quantum plane when it is related to processes and irregularities in the best systems. It is reversed. This is really a great discovery, because thanks to the developing technology with quantum computers a day, this area can be used to delay aging or revitalize dead organs to reverse the effects of time on that object. When discussing this with artificial intelligence, the idea of creating an untime object has also appeared. Within this approach, you can create a timeless quantum area where the Mostropin works, place an object inside and protect its presence from distortion forever. Even if this thought is strange, if a day is real, who knows what gates opener? People can't wonder. When theoretical physics comes together, we begin to observe and understand the nature of this extraordinary time interestingly. And of course, a famous question comes to mind. Is this process in a continuous flow since that time? Is it possible to go forward or back in time? Yes, it is possible to travel short term. Famous writer in 1895, Wells introduced the concept of time journey with a scientific foundation in modern popular culture by publishing his work called Time Machine. Romanda travels to the future to examine the social and physical development of humanity. A science invented a time machine. In the book, it defines the time as a beautiful size. This concept it is considered as the basis of the concept of space, time defined by Hermann Minkowski for about 13 years later. Science follows science fiction in a mysterious way, remember it. This is always a secret of humanity that fascinates me. Einstein shows that the concept mentioned in the novel of Wells can actually produce a day of technology that will provide our future trips. Now, I will tell you the way to reach it. First, according to MC2 equation light speed, you start bending space, time as your mass increases. This is how you travel on this ship for an hour. In fact, you live in the world in a normal way. For people, they pass several years. For example, in 2025, if you have passed an hour according to your perspective, you will return to the world in 2030. Suppose, as in the film, Back to the Future. But what if you say, I went to the future, but I don't like it, I want to return to the past? Here, a small problem arises. In 1949, the famous mathematician and philosopher Kurt Gödel began to develop equations and hypotheses on the time journey based on Einstein's general relative theory. As a result of these equations, Gödel created a concept called the model of the universe. In our universe, there are block structures that contain special ways that we can call closed time curves, time 300 msa. These structures can be able to detect one day. However, this model is fully overlapped with the current understanding of the universe and greatly lost its validity. A similar approach is the theory of wormhole, manifested by Einstein and Nathan Rosen in 1935, the Bridge of Einstein, Rosen with the name of the image. This theoretical structure carries the potential to bend space, time to allow us to travel faster than one point in the universe. We can also go back at the time thanks to this structure, but we still understand exactly how this process works. The idea of returning in time is a fact that the human mind is difficult to grasp. Therefore, one of the reasons why we live troubles in this regard is that the conflict of two logics in physics are contrary to the principle of causality. One of the basic laws of nature is that every event is a reason and the results of this reason should always arise. This condition refers to your existence. This creates an effect, and the reason for this effect is your parents and their families. If you did not say to eliminate your grandfather through a time machine, this cause-end relationship has become unbalanced by our existing understanding. Even the smallest change in the past can affect the balance of mankind, and if time was the same everywhere, it could lead to the imbalance of the entire existence. These are still pointing out the remaining issues beyond our capacity to understand. That's why we'll discover these facts on a day music and think that two enemy countries have discovered this situation. That's not a paradox. Humanity, in the effort of understanding and controlling time for thousands of years. But this linear perception that modern society has been raised, what gives us? We are in an endless race. We constantly ignore the value of the moment when trying to catch things. So, this system was designed to use us and engage our minds. When Jesus met all these valuable scientific studies on topics such as quantum, timeline, theory of the universe, theory of relativeness, arises that time is not a cyclic structure that covers everything when adequate opportunity is provided. What attracts our attention about this is what the past and what will come, just what is available. This shows what we need to understand in this size. You are not in a race. Do not make a final effort to escape it. Everything in a big cycle. The most valuable is that you live at the moment, and this moment affects the future you think is not the past and there. So, you have the chance to fix an error that you have done now 10 years ago. Of course, I'm not talking about going back physically. Maybe one day this is possible, but I'm talking about mentally correcting yourself. Accept your pryings, pains, and errors, and forgive yourself. This way, you can reduce future reflections. If we appreciate our current situation and try to do the best, you can have time with this family, enjoy your business, or just watch the landscape. No matter, make memories valuable. Do not think about the next step while experiencing a beautiful experience. Just focus on that main. When placing something, finish that meal and do not think what to do. Enjoy your meal. When you change your perspective in this way, Everything you do will become more meaningful and satisfying. Yes, most of us live in harsh conditions or work. Maybe we don't find even time to read this book. This is an error created to free people from this system. One of the most pronounced. Zen techniques are one of the simplest methods. There are many sources online about these techniques. Platforms like Zen Research help improve your ability to get rid of this horse race as part of your life. Note: life is exactly the moment. Thank you for your watch. If you still haven't subscribed to our channel, you can subscribe with the subscriber button at the bottom.